That's one of my highest values, that nobody has to wake me up to get out of bed to like go do this. It's like, that's just part of something that I'm going to do no matter what. And if you can actually, connect that in what you're doing, then, you're never working a day in your life.
Today's guest is an international speaker and the co-founder of the Unstoppable Branding and PR agency. He's traveled the world for the last 12 years with his amazing wife and daughter, Rhonda and Hanalei. And now they spend their time living in Bali, surfing all the best breaks over there and just living their absolute best life. But what I love most about this guy is just how relaxed and how humble he is, and just how much of a great father he is to Hanalei. So please help me welcome the guy who went from being a robotics engineer in the Silicon Valley to now the creator of The Perfect Day and the branding guru, my wizard friend, Mr. Brian Swan. What's going on?
Well, my man, it's quarantine life, but first of all, thank you for the incredible introduction, and it's glad to see you again here because we met in Bali. Quarantine life, I have to say, if I'm going to spend any place in the world in this quarantine, crazy coronavirus, Bali's the place. So I'm actually out on the Bukit Peninsula, Uluwatu, Bali, and it's a blessing, man. It's a blessing. I'm very grateful.
It's so incredible seeing your place there. It's like I'm getting itchy feet. It's starting to get a little bit cold here in Australia, so I'm not sure when our travel restrictions are up. But when I think the first place I'm coming back to Bali. We'll come back over there.
I highly recommend it, my man.
I love it. Awesome, Brian. Well, do you want to, just so listeners can kind of get a bit better understanding, where did this all start for you? You want to take us back? Like, how did someone, a robotics engineer from America, just up and create this lifestyle traveling around the world?
All right. Well, I'm gonna rewind it till the day I was born. No, actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share it because the story of how we started our travels and how it all came about is that we lost everything in the 07-08 financial crisis back, and we went from millionaire status, right? Tons of about 6 different properties, golf course development, thinking that we're living the freaking American dream, to buying a burrito. A $5 burrito with your debit card and getting a $35 non-sufficient fund fees. That was the moment where you're like, holy cow, how did things go so good and so bad in such a quick period of time? And it was at that time I read the book The 4-Hour Workweek and by Tim Ferriss, and that was back. I read it in 06, 07, and there was a chapter in it to where it was called the mini retirement. It was either mini retirement or semi-retirement. And he was talking about how if you have something automated, you can go live anywhere in the world and having the income coming in. And most of these places around the world, you can live for a fraction of the cost, like Bali. He didn't come to Bali, but it was he was staying in Eastern Europe, in South America. And I never was crazy was in 06, 07, I kind of just didn't even think about that. Oh yeah, that's cool. I just quit my corporate job. My wife actually retired me from my corporate job. I was a robotics engineer for 10 years. And my wife, she had a moment in her pharmaceutical day, and that's a whole different story, but she had a traumatic experience, and she said she'd never put our future children in daycare. And so she retired me. We're all good, but here's what happened was that we were investing heavy in the real estate, and pretty much that was anything you invested in, you were gonna make money, right? And then the crash happened, and not only the crash happened, but we were connected with some bad people, and we lost everything, right? It was devastating. It was probably the worst year and a half of mental mind shift that I could possibly think of. And then having a little baby girl born into this, and it was where do we go from here? And it was interesting. I'm like, you know what? We have a big $1.7 million house up on the hill in San Diego. We got Escalade, 2 Mercedes, all this shit. But then the only thing I realized, like the only thing that the thing that really made us happy was surfing and traveling and experiences. And it was from that book that I went to my wife and I went, well, we're losing everything. I'm like, what if we just get rid of all of our shit? And she's like, are you crazy? And then it was another month passed. I asked the same questions. And so here's the thing, be persistent. I asked it another month later and she was like, no, you know, all this stuff, this is ours. This is all of our stuff. And then it was like another month later and I put a computer up in our bed. And this is in June, I think 3rd of 2008. And I said, honey, I want you to listen to this, and I don't want you to shut the computer down until the whole thing is done. You promised me that? And she said, yeah. So I put the computer up. It was the chapter of Tim Ferriss of the mini retirement of getting rid of your shit and then, you know, and doing what you want. And I fell asleep. I woke up. And she wasn't there. So I went downstairs, go get water and see where she's at. And she's got her computer up and it said, and she's like Googling Bali. And I was like, yeah, we're doing it. And so that's where it started at. That's the quick lose everything and let's go do it. And we were the first digital nomad family. There's like, the word didn't even exist when we started back in 2008.
And I remember that last time we were talking about all this, you copped so much because Hanalei was just born, right? She was super, super young. And you guys, because you got into the online world as well, which back then, would have been so foreign. But you guys copped so much people not understanding what you're doing, kind of like attacking you guys, right?
Yeah. You know, it was interesting when we made the decision. I mean, we just lost everything, you know, had to file bankruptcy. It was like it was so crazy on what was going on, and it was like the developer he stole all the money out of the houses. So it wasn't us just, you know, we gave, you know, bad money to a bad person, made some bad decisions, and we're like, you know what, it's time to start over. There's like, what do we do next? And when we made the announcement, I'm like, hey, we're gonna go, you know, travel the world. We're gonna go, you know, and here, let me share this with you. I think this is so important to go back. We did receive a lot of flack, so I'll address that. When we made the announcement, people were like, why are you doing this? You're so selfish. Your little baby girl will have no friends. She'll be broken. She, you know, it's like, you know, this is irresponsible. Like every single thing under the bus. And you know what it was? Like with us, we're like, yeah, but we can always make course correction. And it's a lot of people's fears projecting onto you, you know. And this is back when, like, if you got to think about it, this is like when Facebook was just kind of coming out, like, you know, and the social media, and then you had the haters. We didn't even know what haters were back then. Like, wow, it's like we're having haters before we even knew what haters were. And, you know, it's like, you know, we can make course correction. That's the thing about life. You make decisions and you kind of, you know, figure out how the way you go. But we received a lot of flack, definitely, back then.
And that's just the thing. You've got to just stick true to what it is you set out to do, right? And I think like there's always gonna be people that don't agree with you or don't see what you see. And I love that, being able to course correct, being able to have the awareness. Is this working? Is this not working? And without going to denial. And on that note, just share for listeners, how has Hanalei turned out?
Well, all right. So no, she's turned out all right. And you know what? She's the most beautiful person inside and outside. Mm. The fact of her being in third world countries and traveling ever since she was 1 year old, and she came to Bali when she was 2, and she's been in like 50 some countries. She's got to experience eyes through her, experience the world through her eyes versus the textbook. And she's learned that she has to be very flexible, because like when you're traveling around, especially like it was getting easier. But like back when we were starting, we were trying to start our business over. We had a 1 year old in check. We're going through borders of third world countries. Internet sucked. It was chaos, absolutely chaos. But we learned was that you had to be flexible. And then since then, you know, Hanalei, so we go to events, and we have, not only do we host our own events, but, she's been to 100 entrepreneurial events. She's just part of our life. And now at the age of 8, we asked her the question, I think it was actually 7. We asked her a question. We have this on video too. We were living in Panama. We went up to Costa Rica, and Rhonda asked Hanalei, she goes, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she goes, I want to be a fashion designer. And Rhonda, my wife, she says, you could be that now. And you saw this little twinkle in her eye going, really? Because we gave her permission. And she's like, huh. And my wife says, you could be the best fashion designer in the world. And she's like, really? And she goes, you could be that right now. So we asked her daughter, what do you want to be now versus what do you want to be when you grow up? And at the age of 8, she borrowed $20 from us. We were hosting an event. This was actually, forgot where it was, but she got all these threads and needles, and she started making these like puffy keychains. And she took the $20, and I think she made a couple $100 by selling them to people that are at our event. And then she reinvested that money, and she started an eco-friendly fashion company. So by the age of 11, she generated 6 figures, and now she's spoken in 6 different continents, and she gets flown to go speak around the world. So kind of cool.
That is extremely cool. And that, like, I just love that because, like, and I've met Hanley. We've all hung out quite a few times over there in Bali, and it is just when you give someone the ability to learn that way instead of through a textbook, instead of the way society conditions. And oh my God, like, she's 12 going on 30, that little woman. And it's just incredible to see what she's done. And so Brian, what's the difference, right? So what's the difference in raising a kid, right? And we had this conversation ages ago, and it was so good. How did you guys look to, like, raising Hanalei differently to creating 6 figures by 12, as opposed to, say, a normal parenting through society? And like what's the difference there? There's obviously such a difference. It's a new level of, like, self-development, or a way to raise a child brings them up differently. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We and it's a good question. People ask us this all the time, like, how did you raise her? Well, we were very conscious that we weren't going to raise her just an ordinary traditional way. I went to this is interesting. I went to, like, my first personal development event, and it was in 2005, and I was a robotics engineer. It was at a network marketing affiliate, and it was all in personal development. And I'm just sitting in the back with my arms crossed, like, what is this? And this was before the movie The Secret, and people aware of, like, law of attraction. Yeah, we had Tony Robbins, but this wasn't mainstream like it is now. And I had this guy, the first guy that I saw on stage. His name was Michael Auger, and he wrote a book called The Law of Attraction, and this is before the movie The Secret. And I was just like, what is this, like, hokey pokey law of attraction, blah blah, like, but then he was saying some things that just made sense. And he said, one of the biggest things, he goes, how many people have children? We didn't, but we were planning on having children. And he says, one of the biggest things that you can do to make an impact in your children's life is take the words no, not, and don't out of your vocabulary. Now, you got to think about this. Like, when you're growing up as kids, it's like, don't do that. No. And all you hear, and it's programming, versus having like, Hanalei, you're up high, there's consequences. And I'm talking about, like, you actually have to reprogram your whole vocabulary. And he's like, try it. Try to just remove these words out of your vocabulary and have it to where kids can make decisions. Now, seems like it's still hard for me today, but consciously, before Hanalei was born, we actually, we practiced on each other, and we're like, oh, you're saying no, don't do that. And it's just like, and it was just subtle things like that. read a book so she also, like I said, she grew up in entrepreneurial events and she went traveling around the world. So she got to be around people that were already, the way of thinking, like kind of like anything is possible. And there's another book that was just a really big factor on this. It's the Celestine Prophecy. And speaking of like the Gold Coast and out in Australia, we actually got it. We picked it up in Nimbin, right out of Byron Bay. And we were there. And I picked up this book and it was like, the Celestine Prophecy. And there's a chapter and it's these principles of, the storyline is great. And this is actually another tip I'm going to give for parents is listen to audiobooks in front of your kids and like have it just surrounding. I listen to like hundreds of books, but it was this one chapter, and it was talking, the parent had like a 4-year-old in the story, and somebody was asking a question like, what's your daughter's name? Well, why don't you ask her right there? She's right there. Oh, what does she like to do? Ask her. And the whole principle was she's a human being and she can make her own choices and decisions. And we, at an early age, from the time she was able to talk, we didn't answer for her. We allowed her to make decisions and talk. And what it does at that early of an age, it shows that we're giving you permission to like make your own decisions, and it's like they're actually human beings, and it's so powerful. Like, so ever since she was born, that was the thing. We'd always just let her talk, and it's like respect her as a human being, even when they're young. Powerful things, man. So those things really just set it, her off in just a total different way of parenting. And you're like, even think about this, and like, what does your child want? Even like if they're 7, 8 years old. Oh, well, they don't like, the onions on their thing when they're ordering food. It's like you let them make decisions at an early age, because when they're able to make decisions at an early age, their decisions, they're able to make them way better. And like, as the ages go on. So
that's so, and I'm just thinking back right now, it's in my business, right? Like creating a leader or creating any kind of leader, it's about, instead of telling somebody what to do, you need to help them make that decision, right? And then from then on, they're always making better decisions and being more empowered. So I love that. So instead of just kind of saying straight up, don't do this or no that, making that decision for them, you're more so having them think a different way where they have to create a decision. And now it's really fascinating.
And let them know that there's consequences, so like when I use that example, like Hanalei, it's like, you're up high out there. I was like, just realize, you fall, you're going to get, you can get injured. Hey, instead of like, stop, like, let's say they're at the pool, stop running, it's like, hey, it's slippery out here. You might fall, just and it's that thing. Cause like, I'm not talking about like when they're running out in front of a car and you're like going, you're about ready to get hit. I'm not saying like, then you say it, but like people are, kids they're gonna get, they're gonna fall by the pool. They're gonna get burned. They're gonna have to realize that. But if you're like allowing them to actually make those decisions, man, you're setting them up for success versus just,
being conformed,
negative programming.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like kids, like how easy is it for them to just, they're meaning making machines. You might yell at them one day and be like, don't do this. But coming from you as an adult, it's like you're just caring for them, but for them, make up this meaning. And then there's like a little bit of trauma and it's like all this ongoing crazy shit, right? I'm so fascinated by this. And I was reading a book ages ago. It's the same with everything, right? So the example he was giving was he's like, and it's like how to actually just show up as a more likable and better person in conversations. So it's like, instead of talking about, because it's how it lands in our subconscious. So it's like, let's say me and you catch up and you go, oh, how was your day? And so instead, if I had a really shitty day, instead of me saying, oh, today was so shit, now you're left with this taste in your mouth like, oh my God, he's negative. But I can say the same thing to you. Instead of saying today was so shit, I'd say, oh, today wasn't the best day. And now all you hear in your subconscious is the best day, and the conversation's much lighter, and the relationship is just so much like better. So that's the thing I consciously try to do all the time. He explained to it like, he's like, if I was a corner man in a boxing ring and I'm yelling out to my guy, I wouldn't say to him, I'd stop saying to him, like, don't do that, don't do that. I would say, hey, watch that, or try this. And it's more putting that decision making in, right? And it's so fascinating. Just the conversations.
Yeah.
So you were talking about how you're the creator of your perfect day. What does that mean?
Yeah. That's not coronavirus. So
I'm glad you're over there.
Yeah. So perfect day. So here's back in 2005, 2006, my wife got involved in a personal development company, right? And one of the first thing that they sold was I think it was like a 60-day personal development course. And the first exercise was called How to Create Your Perfect Day. And, I didn't do anything. I was so scared. I remember when my wife, she was like, you should listen to this. You should. I'm like, oh, whatever. It's like, you can bring a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. And I was like that horse that you can make drink. But as Rhonda, my wife, she was becoming a better person. I could just see her like, wow, certain things about her that there's so many different things. She was becoming like, where we could get in arguments, let's say for a couple days, they would be like ending quickly, and like she's like her moods, and I'm like, wow, what's going on? And she's like, you should do this. But it wasn't until she started becoming successful, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do this personal development course. I was so scared to do it, and the first thing was writing out what your perfect day looked like. And I was nervous and didn't write anything for 6 months because I was fearing of like, what if my wife read it and she thought I was an idiot? What if my friends found out and like, oh my, what would they think? And what if I wrote this out and it wasn't going to become true and I'm a liar? And all these things. And I finally wrote this out. And the perfect day, what I wrote, it's not like 24 hours left and you're going to Vegas and with the boys and I got 24 hours and this is it. I'm talking about like, what does your ideal average day look like? Kind of like today. And, what is it going to be like in the morning? What kind of foods you need? What kind of people are you going to surround yourself with? What kind of activities? What is your business? What kind of things are you going to do for giving back? All these things. And it's like dreamscaping of what you want your life to actually look like. And I wrote that out in 2006, August 30th, 2006. I actually have a screenshot of it. And it was one of the biggest impacts of my life. And so one of my business partners and friends, we're like, you know what, let's do a video on this, recreating it. So, we just have some good piece of content. This is like about 9 years ago. We created that. And man, it's helped thousands of people from this video. And it was from how you did it. And it was a 30-minute video, horrible, filming versus what we do now, but the impact is like changed so many people's lives. And now we're actually we're making How to Create Your Perfect Day 2.0 and going even deeper this time around. But it all started with that exercise of How to Create Your Perfect Day way back in 2006.
That's cool. So it's kind of like an educational kind of self-development thingy that you plug into to start bridging the gap to where you are now to where you want to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love
absolutely. It. And I think a lot of people you see people are like, just let's say they're like, especially right now, let's say they lost a job. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out something that I can do online. Where do I start? They're like, what tools do I got? And I'm like, start with this exercise. And they're like, what's this? I'm like, if you don't have it straight up here first, all this other shit I'm going to teach you is not going to work. You got to get it. Your whole mindset, it started first. And people think like, no, just show me how to make the money. Well, it starts right there. And so I like it because it's kind of like the easy starting point. And if somebody's not, and here's the thing, if somebody's not willing to actually do that, then the conversation is done on me even helping them even further. It's like, can't even do step one, you know?
Yes, that's so funny. Like that's actually the first, like when I onboard new business partners as well, that before they even talk to them, before they do anything, that's the exact same first thing as well. It's like, you want to get clear on what's your actual driving force. What do you want to create? What's your vision? What's your why? And right. Is that something you put out for people to get, or is that something a part of programs how can someone get onto that, I guess?
You know, you can actually just go on YouTube and say, create your perfect day. And you can see the video that's been up for like 9 years and seen all the comments and stuff. Otherwise, you can go to unstoppablesurfer.com or unstoppablefamily.com, and it's right there. But if you want to see it old school on YouTube, there you go.
First video ever on
type
YouTube.
Create your perfect day and you find.
Incredible. So how's it kind of led into what are you guys doing today then? Like you said, you're traveling around the world, you're running your own events. Now you got your own PR agency, branding. You guys are kind of the go-to. Like when I think of like marketing and online presence, I think of you guys. So what is that? What are you guys kind of up to these days?
Well, you know, it's like we were in affiliate marketing for about like 8-9 years, and then when we made the switch of into the branding, it's just kind of like the something we always promoted, and my wife was incredibly good at it. So she has a branding agency, and the branding agency is, it's not just a logo, but really creating your brand of who you are and why people will actually look for you. And I think this is another huge mistake, because there might be quite a few people that may be in like a MLM or a network marketing business here, and the thing is, we became #1 income earners in 3 different companies, and there's a reason why. One, we were able to create our own brand where people came to us, and then we had some type of offering. 2, we're able to deliver our team some of the most powerful things for them to succeed. So we helped our team grow. We didn't give it to them, but we gave them the tools. And that was kind of like what we always did. So the branding agency, like, hey, it's powerful. And we were talking about branding before branding was cool. Now, like, if you look anywhere, like, oh, you got to create your brand. Dude, when we were talking about it, just like when we started our travels, people were like, well, you don't have to create your own brand. Just, tell people, go to this company. It's like, dude, whatever. So that is where it was already in our DNA. And then what we realized on the PR side of things, how do you really have people really take notice of you? Now, like, for instance, I'm on your podcast, right? So people don't know who I am, but the people that love you, Morgan, they're going to take me and give me instant credibility because I'm on your show. There's a third-party validation. And so what we realized over it's like about 3-4 years ago, we're like, you know what? We should want to be in Forbes or Entrepreneur. And it was the only reason we did it was to have it so we could, ethically put it onto our website that as seen on Entrepreneur, as seen on Forbes. And we didn't really know how to leverage it besides that's, as seen on. And us as marketers, I always got to start thinking of what is the next thing. And Rhonda and I were like, last year we started digging deep, and we're like, man, we can market and be able to have, being able to leverage publications, and it's instant. Like when you think of Forbes, let me just ask you a question. When you think of Forbes and you see somebody who's written up as a feature in there, is that instant credibility?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't even have to think about it. It's like, it's not like you just saying somebody like, oh, well, it's obviously got to be, pretty true. And we started really digging in deep this last year about PR and how to leverage that. And, since we have a branding agency and the marketing, we're connected, directly with Facebook, and we can, on a weekly basis, be connecting with someone inside. And they said during the coronavirus, and they gave us a slide, and they said right now how to actually thrive during the coronavirus and coming out more on top is that you have to create a brand that is valuable to where people know, like, and trust you. And you have to like really create that brand now. And the second thing they put was leverage PR and other publications that can give you an authority figure of like for credibility. So it's kind of like adding another layer on to what we're doing.
Yeah. So what would be the top like 2 or 3 things someone who's kind of just starting out in the branding world, starting to develop their own brand? What would be the top 2 or 3 things that they should be doing or focusing on?
You kind of bleed it up, but what was the top 1 or 2 things they should be doing right now?
Yeah, for someone who's just kind of getting into the whole branding world or just
To
kind of
get
starting
started?
out. Yeah, what would be the top
That
2 or
might be
3 things that they should be focusing on?
Okay. This is a great question because Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels, if you know who he is, he reached out to 30 of the, what they say, 2 Comma Club award winners. That means you have to generate 7 figures through a marketing funnel. And he asked this question for an upcoming book of his. He said, if you were to lose everything, didn't have an email list, didn't have any JV partners, people that you could rely on, and you had all the tools such as software, what would you do right now to rebuild your business in the next 30 days? Well, it was an easy one for us because we lost everything in 07, 08, and this is exactly what we did. And one of the biggest things, and especially right now, is to creating your brand. I would suggest going live every single day on Facebook. It's free, and it's to me, I haven't seen anything else that can get you the most organic traffic. When I say organic, meaning you don't have to pay for it, anything out there in the world. And ever since coronavirus started, we go live every single day, building our traffic up. We don't have to.
You do this, you go live to your personal page or a group?
I go live to our business page, and for people that are just starting out, you're going to want to do it to your personal, but to start with, but then start bringing people over to your business page. And this is something because, and I don't know how far you want to go down on the rabbit hole, because that
go down the rabbit hole.
But it could go a long ways, and it could get. But I'm going to keep it as easy as possible. Is that Facebook, they like to reward people, and even Instagram, but I find it way more. There's a lot more buyers on Facebook and stuff. And then also these Facebook Lives, they last. They don't just get taken down like on Instagram after 24 hours, but they're there. And like for instance, we have like 77,000 like followers on Facebook, but Facebook only shows the 5% of your followers your live video. So people are like, well, I don't have a Facebook page, business page. It doesn't matter. Facebook actually will reward you, and people are commenting, engaging. Even if you have hardly any, they'll still send you traffic. And the greatest thing, this is when you want to get to advance, is you're starting to hold audiences. I've always said, and this is something you should always do, to build a list. Well, and a list back in the day was an email list, right? And an email list, you give something for free in exchange for your email, and then you can, keep them in contact. But now you can do this on Facebook. You can be able to create a list without even, asking for emails, and you can start creating that easy, free. And the other thing behind this is that you start talking to your audience. And you can, I go live every single day, and I can see what works, what doesn't work, what sticks, and what doesn't. And you can ask your people, and you get real live feedback right away. And if something sucks, what's the worst case scenario? Delete it. But your first 50 videos are going to suck anyway. Okay? That's just what it is. So get over the hump, start doing it, and start putting yourself out there. That's number one. I can't think of anything else more than to do that. And then when you start going into the audiences, what I start doing, then I start retargeting all the people that created those that watch that video. I can show them marketing videos to them and keep on putting them through a little spider web.
Well, what would you say is the biggest secret when it comes to crushing it online?
I would say consistency. It's showing up when you don't want to show up and when you don't feel like it. That's a major thing. The number one killer is when people, they can go for a run for let's say going live for like 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then they're going whole. It's just kind of the same thing with like your body, right? And working out, it's the same thing. So if you think about it as your body, it's like you don't just work out for 30 days and you're good for the next 11 months. You got to consistently get your ass up out of bed and freaking do the work. And it's the same thing. Your audience, if you're showing up, and there's a reason why we go live every day at 7:45. People were consistent. That's why they're like, oh, they're showing up. I'm going to show up for them. But if you're sporadic, man, and it's the people that start and then they stop and then they're like, oh, it's not working. You got to get your ass out of bed every day and do the work. Consistency.
I love that. That's everything. We talk about that like a tons, like consistently leave so that compounding effect, right? So if you're going to be good, so if you're going to be set your years ahead in 12 months, or, you're going to be far, far, far behind. Brian, what is something around marketing, around branding, around online presence that I haven't asked you that I should ask you?
Interesting. How does that work when you're going to jail? No, I'm just
How do you do it ethically?
No, here's the one thing that you don't usually get this angle for like branding. You got to do things that are alignment with your values and align yourself. I just remember back in the day when we were getting started, people were about the money and the having a picture with your car, the house, blah 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 blah. That works. It's short term, but the reason why we built a following over all these years is because we have values that people know they can trust and go to. And when you have those values, like for instance, we're all about freedom, family, and fun. That's what they know about Unstoppable Family. And where, our family, it's like our message has stayed the same. And so consistency on your messaging. Because if you're freaking going out promoting some deal here this week and then you're doing this, people are like, who the hell are they? People know that they can trust us. And they're like, we get messages all the time. They're like, man, I've been following you for 10 years. And I just want to reach out. And so have your values. A lot of times there's a lot of like silver shiny objects, but those are short term. Don't chase the money.
That's incredible. Because you see so many people these days, chasing 20 different rabbits.
Yeah.
Right? And they just lose credibility. Like, like people, I can think of a bunch of people right now that I've followed for a while that I just kind of know through meeting them in Bali or whatever. And it's like every 6-12 months, they're on a new thing, especially, in network marketing. You see some people, they're at this company and they're at that company. And it's like, what the hell? You're on your third company. Why would anyone? That's huge. Like, I think people don't fully understand that, like, if you are in this branding world, that who you are being right now, like, it's so easy to leave that mark on someone, and people, they see you do some things and 5 years later, they still remember you for that. Like, and I truly think that and there's people really, like, I dived into the good conspiracies of all this Corona stuff right now as well, but I didn't publicize anything. Like, unless that's my branding. It's like, there's so many things out there right now. So many people have strong beliefs around certain things. And I'm out of that. I'm staying out of that because it's like, I don't want to be known for someone who try to take advantage of a situation or try to stir something or whatever right now, and then that's going to ruin my branding, reputation, business in 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think it's important to stay consistent.
Yep.
I love it. Brian, where can everybody find you on social media? You're telling me you've got the Unstoppable podcast coming out soon as well?
Yeah, the Unstoppable Surfer. You can see the shirt that I got here, right here.
Yeah.
But our Unstoppable Family brand has been around for, over a decade. So anything Unstoppable Family, if you Google it, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Unstoppable Family, unstoppablepamily.com, everything's there.
I love it. And when's the podcast coming out?
My birthday this May 30th. So I'm loading them up right now, and it's like we had our podcast with Unstoppable Family, but it was kind of sporadic. Where now it's like I'm really just niching it, and that's another thing, just niching it right into the Unstoppable Surfer, the whole lifestyle and interviewing legends in the industry, and that's essentially creating my perfect day, because you can't. There's one thing, and this is one last tip I want to give you. Do something that you don't have to think about. Like, for instance, when I started Unstoppable Surfer, I was like, I'm going to go surfing all the time. I'm going to talk about surfing. That's one of my highest values, that nobody has to wake me up to get out of bed to like, go do this. It's like, that's just part of something that I'm going to do no matter what. And if you can actually, connect that in what you're doing, then, you're never working a day in your life.
Mm, I love it. All right, Brian, to wrap this up, I'm going to ask you a last question. Are you ready?
Yep. Go for it.
If you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
You're never going to believe what the fuck is going to happen, but just roll with it. Nah, it's the 30 seconds of advice. It's like, just trust the process. Everything happens for a reason. And, if I knew that, like, while you're going through the worst things, or like, some of the, like, if I was to give it, some of the worst things in your life are actually going to be your biggest assets. That's what I'm going to end it with.